Hey everyone, welcome to the Higher Points Podcast. I'm Nick Sowers here in the studio with my buddy Nate Hyatt. We're coming at you with a full-length podcast. If you're new to the podcast, normally we kind of alternate. We have a full length where we either interview somebody or we talk about something at length, or we do a to the point, which is like a 20 to sometimes 45-ish minutes, usually in the 20 to 30 minute range. Shorter podcast where we just kind of talk about something we learned or our week or just a quick topic that we just kind of want to touch on. But today is the full length, so we'll be coming at you with something that's going to be longer than that, but it just depends on kind of how it goes as to how long the podcast is. So What you been up to this week, man?
Working, just like always.
You things going well for week 2?
Yeah, it was a good week. Another just working on remodels and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, what's up next on the calendar for you?
We're going to continue on this remodel we've been working on. I'm going to work at my house a little bit, which is exciting because I don't make time to go work out there. And I've owned this place for almost 3 years now. And
yeah.
kind of need to get it finished.
Yeah. Well, you're always like, oh, I need to do that. I need to do that. I need to do that. And
then I don't do it.
And then you do it a little bit, and then you stop for a while. Then you do a little bit.
Yeah, so there's like a bunch of projects out there that are like halfway done. Like framing is 99% done.
Yeah.
Siding's like 55% done. Subfloor is like 95% done. So I just need to go like finish stuff up and just get things rolling. They're actually coming out to install HVAC stuff. Get that rolling Monday.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. Getting some more progress there and get some I don't know if I'm going to do the electrical or if I'm going to pay someone to do it. I haven't decided that yet.
It's okay. It's just money. It's no big deal. Just print your own. It's what the government does.
That's right.
It's not frowned upon or anything. No worries.
Doesn't cause nobody no harm.
I'm kind of boring, man. All I've got's my 3 to 11 shift coming up. Eli's going to stay with Thomas this week, so
yeah,
he'll be down and out for spring break, and that's it, man.
Yeah, it's been exciting.
Yeah, I'm actually excited too. I mean, I was telling you on the way here that I got some things that I'm kind of working on that I hope end up panning out, just to kind of give extra cash here and there. So
Farmer Nick,
yeah, right.
I want to see you in your bibs without a shirt on underneath.
Nobody wants to see that.
Feeding your cows.
Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that. So, I kind of sprung on Nate, yesterday or day before, that I kind of wanted to talk about, Tucker Carlson's release of like the January 6th footage. And it's commonly referred to as J6. If you don't know what that is, it's like the quote unquote insurrection of people storming the Capitol and, all this violence and deaths and all this other kind of stuff. And so it was just interesting to see, so to kind of give the backstory is, Tucker Carlson was given access to 40,000 hours of footage from inside the Capitol on that day by the Speaker of the House. And so that footage was something that wasn't going to be released or anything like that at when they first had the commission that was investigating the whole thing. And so after that, everybody kind of saw snippets and things online and pictures and videos on social media of what happened. And you typically have what they called like the shaman, the guy that had the horns on with like the painted face and all that other kind of stuff. And like several people have been arrested as a result of that, including the shaman guy who got 4 years in prison, which I think was interesting considering, I know violent criminals that I have arrested that don't spend 4 years in prison.
And he didn't actually hurt anybody or have a weapon.
Yeah.
I mean, he had
he had a flag. Yeah. He had a flag in his hand, an American flag. But, I'm talking people like have actually like hurt people, which I know that people are going to say like, well, people died that day and, stuff like that. Like, I'm not trying to take away from the death that happened and everything, but it's just interesting to kind of see the footage. And this is something that I wanted to talk about. So if you look at just kind of some of the preliminary footage that came out, like the way that the narrative was spun to us was essentially that there were these violent Trump supporting protesters that said the election was essentially no good, and then they stormed the Capitol, doing all this damage, killing all these people, and, basically had to kind of be like, forcibly removed or, and all these. supposedly all these senators and representatives and everything are like running for their lives. Which when I first heard about it, I was happy in the sense of like not necessarily like that the election was a fraud or anything like that. But it was nice to see the politicians that represent us tucking tail and running. That they weren't up there in their ivory tower anymore. And that the whole reason the Second Amendment existed and the whole reason our country is what it is because people stood up and did just that.
And they
against Britain.
Didn't feel invincible.
And
because they feel invincible a lot of times.
Yes. Like they feel like they're kind of untouchable, which now they've since built a fence around them to keep the bad people out, which I think is interesting because they won't build a fence across the border. But that's a whole other podcast. And, you know, and they've compared J6 to being worse than the Civil War, to being worse than 9/11, to being worse than any other like war, and they've done these like memorials to like all of these dead people and all this other kind of stuff, right? Well, it's interesting because they say that an officer, a Capitol Police officer, the narrative that was told to us was a Capitol Police officer was beat in the head by right-wing extremist Trump supporters with a fire extinguisher and died. Like that was the narrative that was spun at the time. And then there was another lady that she was an Army veteran. She was a protester and she was shot and killed during the course of the protests as well. And so now that this footage and stuff has come out, it completely refutes the narrative that was come across. It completely refutes everything that the commission did. And all that kind of stuff. And so it's just interesting to kind of see the footage and see what's going on. And I feel, from what I've seen, that we have been 110% lied to. And which doesn't surprise me. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, especially if you were trying to take over a election and, you know, you don't want people bringing anything to light. Mm-hmm. So Marco Rubio said the best, never let a good tragedy go to waste. So you have these people, they come in and they do all this kind of stuff or whatever, assuming they weren't let in, which we'll talk more about that in a minute. But you take this thing that happened and now you spin it to your advantage. Like, look over here, look at this thing, look at what's going on at the Capitol, but so that people can't focus on the things like what you see in 3,000 Mules where they pulled the metadata from the cell phones and they were seeing the video footage, watching people stuffing ballots in these ballot boxes, which again is a whole nother thing that we could talk on a different podcast, which would be a good one to have Ted on because we were hoping to have Ted here tonight because he would be great to have to talk about all these things as well.
Schedules just didn't work out.
Yeah. And so it was just interesting to hear, I guess actually more importantly, to see what went on. So, the shaman, which is the gentleman that was in the horns and the painted face, so he's kind of the QAnon guy. He was kind of the labeled as the leader of QAnon, and he is the kind of the fall guy, kind of the face of the whole thing. But it was interesting to see him literally walking around inside the Capitol, being escorted around by Capitol Police with no less than they counted like 9 or 10 different Capitol Police officers that he was either in contact with or passed by that in no way, shape, or form in any way tried to stop him. They even like basically escorted him around and even tried to get access to locked areas and stuff with him. Him and I saw 2 others in the videos. So
I haven't watched any of these videos. I honestly, I don't pay attention to the news a whole lot.
I wouldn't if it wasn't this. You know, because
like federally and like the only news I really get right now is like what's going on at the state level with medical marijuana. And like I get that information. I don't even read articles on it. Like we get it as a coalition. We get it from certain legislators and it's relayed from the president to us. You know, so it's about as direct as we can get. That's about the extent of the news that I listen to right now. Maybe I'm closed-minded for not paying attention to more stuff, but I don't know. So I haven't seen anything. I honestly haven't seen much on this.
Yeah, well, what I think is interesting is right now Tucker Carlson's being condemned. Fox News is being condemned. And I the thing that I have realized about politics is it's all theater, right? So now that condemnation is because it's like, oh shit, you're bringing to light the things, and they're saying, well, you cherry picked video and all this other kind of stuff
and edited it.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay.
How hard is it to edit that stuff? Like to make it look the way it did?
It depends. It depends on the money that you have invested, because you can do
the people who run our media
AI.
And this kind of stuff do not. They've got an unlimited budget. They got as much money as they need.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, though, with the AI stuff is there are little nuancy things where it's not quite good enough yet, that it doesn't get blinking well. Sometimes it'll make an extra finger on hands and things like that. So if you look close enough, you can kind of see some of those things. But he did like a whole like week-long kind of segment on the thing. And it was also interesting, too, because there was an officer inside, that officer that was being told that he was beaten in the head with a fire extinguisher and died as a result of his injuries. Well, he is in the video, alive and well, after the time that he should have been dead based on the narrative. And so come to find out, now they're talking about that his death was was ruled natural, and he had a stroke after the fact, days later. And now, experts are saying, well, but the stress can set off strokes and all that other kind of stuff, which I'm not necessarily arguing. And I did ask a friend that his wife is a trauma doc in New York. And I was like, hey, when it comes to strokes, like typically if you're going to stroke out from stress, like a stress-induced stroke, I'm like, is there typically some sort of like an underlying condition, some sort of another issue, or can stress alone in a healthy individual kick off a stroke?
He probably got vaccinated.
And yeah, and he said that his wife said that it, more than likely he had other underlying health conditions that contributed to the stroke. And so I think the biggest issue that I have with all of this is that we've been spun this narrative, had this whole council or commission to investigate the whole thing. And you've had people that were arrested for doing this, for holding their elected officials accountable and interfering with an election that has been proven many times and has been proven empirically with data and with video. If you watch 3,000 Mules. And then, so we just constantly get lied to, right? And I think, like, at what point do we say enough is enough? And now, again, this is not me saying everyone pick up your AR-15 and go out and start shooting and start the war. That's not what I'm saying. You've heard me say many times that we're not going to vote ourselves back into prosperity. We need that culture change. What are we going to do as a culture to change? We're not going to let these people walk over the top of us, because as long as they can keep us fighting about vaccinations, division, right?
That's all it is division.
Yeah. Black and white, division. Okay. Man versus woman or homosexual versus,
I actually had an interesting conversation with someone the other day about TikTok. And I was like, he sent me a bunch of like conspiracy stuff and this and that. And I was like, dude, you need to get off of TikTok and go talk to some real people. Get out of the cave you're living in. Because, it's not the end of the world because all this stuff maybe happened, maybe didn't, you need to go build something for yourself. Go build your career, go build a family, go do something, do something worthwhile other than worry about that stuff. And he's like, I watch TikTok because it's the only uncensored social media left. And I said, you realize that China, like Chinese companies own TikTok, and they track every single piece of data from that.
Including your keystrokes from your keyboard.
Exactly. And like they know you 100%. And when we do have something go down, like say World War III, it's not going to be fought with guns. It's going to be cyber, like nobody wants to come to the United States and take on the United States as a whole. They want to derive a wedge, and platforms like TikTok can do that.
Well, that's just the thing.
And that's why it's foreign owned, because they're throwing out all these right wing conspiracies and left wing conspiracies, and just drawing the divide for people.
Well, I think it's interesting you say that because, everybody always talks about how, like they better not come here. There's a gun behind every blade of grass, et cetera, that adage that you've always heard.
No, they're going to make us fight each other first.
Well,
then they're going to come here.
That's just it. Nobody needs to attack America. Like, we're already doing a good enough job. I mean, like, how many times have even we had conversations with, like, your parents where there's that division over the vaccination and stuff like that? As long as we are fighting each other, as long as we're getting back at each other, like, they're winning. Like, nobody needs to attack us. We're attacking each other. We're literally tearing each other apart from the inside out.
I told
nobody
my parents
needs to attack America.
We're going to talk about J6 tonight. And they're like, well, I'm not going to listen to that podcast.
See, that's just the problem is there's
But like, then I sat there and had the conversation. I was like, it's just like, it's okay that you don't agree with us, but like,
yeah,
we can still have a conversation about it. And like, we talked about it and I was like, at the end of the day, like, it's just people trying to divide us is what it is. It's the bigger powers, bigger than politicians, the people who own the politicians and foreign governments that are trying to divide us.
Well, so back on subject is you were talking about the division again. I mean, you're either transgender or you're homophobic, right? So it's all division. What is the common?
Or you're straight one.
Yeah. What is the common adage that we've always heard? United we stand, divided we fall. Like that. Mm-hmm. That is the whole idea. You keep the division going. You don't focus on the Epstein Island and all the people that were there. You don't focus on all the money going to Ukraine and getting funneled. You don't focus on, Biden's son being involved in all the Ukrainian stuff that is now, coming to light that, his father profited from even during his presidency. Mm-hmm. Let's not focus on the fact that classified documents were found at his office and more were found at the Biden Penn Center that had been removed from his office prior to the actual raid happening, which they made sure that the raid happened after the election and the things that happened before the election were kept quiet. Mm-hmm. But of course, if President Trump were to have done those things, that would have been, mainstream.
Well, I mean,
media.
he basically did the same thing with the documents he had.
Right. But that's what I'm saying is it's not receiving the same attention. It's like, look over here, look over here, look over here. Yeah. All these things are not receiving the attention they should.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, to me, that's a big deal that our last two presidents have had classified documents outside of like
allegedly. I mean, until they're found guilty in a court of law, yeah. Allegedly.
And but to me, that says if they're doing it, like they've all been doing it,
Yeah. Well, but that's just the thing that I think that is annoying is it's like, this isn't me saying, well, Trump's fine because I like Trump. Like he could have those documents, but Biden, I don't like him. He can't have those.
Yeah.
Like my thing is wrong is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If Trump had classified documents at his place, and then he should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
If he was responsible for J6, then he shouldn't be able to run for presidency.
But the same thing should apply to President Biden.
No, I agree.
I mean, the law should be applied equally across the board. That's
always
where
should be.
That's where I'm at with it.
But you and I both know it's not.
Yeah.
And like, cause there's politicians and there's people that, get away with DUIs when they shouldn't, was he a senator in Kansas or something? He got pulled over after some fundraising stuff and went to jail, got away, like got off of the DUI.
Yeah.
Like, they're above the law.
They certainly try.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, they call him the QAnon shaman. He was given, like we said, the 4 years in prison for basically essentially being politely escorted by the Capitol Police. And he even mentions in a prayer while standing in the middle, and this was not Capitol footage. This was like somebody on their cell phone footage. Mm-hmm. But he was actually even like praying while standing up the front, like, Lord, like, thank you for these Capitol Police. Like, thank you for them being nice. They've let us in here. They've let us do this. Like even saying, so I mean, like, I guess just the fact that it annoys me that it was like this quote unquote violent insurrection and all this other kind of stuff, yet the video is showing us a completely different story. And, you know, it's now been proven with many studies, many times, masks didn't work, don't do shit. Okay? The vaccination is causing problems. Okay? If you like vaccinations and you liked getting vaxxed, fine. But again, it's causing problems. The things that were censored, okay? Like, no vaccination, no medication is 100% perfect. None. Mm-hmm. It always has side effects.
Yeah.
That just happens to be that vaccination side effects.
Yep.
Myocarditis and other issues has been proven. But that was stuff that was, you know, shielded from the internet.
Pushed under the rug.
You know, and then, you know, we got lied to on, you know, the fact that there was like the election interference, yet now, you know, Elon Musk is showing with the Twitter files that was also a lie and also bogus. And like the FBI was actually a part of like, hey, you should probably censor this. Hey, you should probably censor that. Hey, you should probably censor this.
Elon Musk is an interesting guy. Like, I wonder what his goals are in this deal, you know?
If you take him at face value, you know, he said he was a lifelong Democrat voter and then kind of was like, holy crap, especially when like Tesla came around. Mm-hmm. And he kind of started to see...
he was a Democrat voter then because they're like, okay, we'll give you all this government money to get these batteries going, basically.
Yeah, well, but then he started to kind of see under the veil. And he said, like, he kind of made that decision of like, holy crap, like, I can't allow this to stand. Like, I'm seeing what's going on and saw what they were doing and decided, whoa, like, you know, I don't agree with this. I don't like this. And so...
There's more to it, though. I guarantee it. He's got deeper goals.
Okay, but
he's got personal aspirations in it.
Okay, but even if that's the case, okay, at the present moment in time, he's exposing the bad things that bad people did, and so we have to take this at face value with this information on this circumstance, because that's like saying you look at a law enforcement officer and you have the benefit of hindsight, so you make this like, well, he should have made this decision. Well, he didn't have that information at the time. So like, we just take this specific thing that he's releasing the information on, the empirically proven information.
No, I understand that, but and there is a reason why he's doing it.
Everybody has a reason why they do things. And sometimes can that reason not just be that you're a good person and that you want to do right?
More times than not, when you've got that kind of money.
What does he have to gain? The guy has a butt-fuck ton of money. What
does Bill Gates have to gain?
What more does he need? What more does he need?
What does Bill Gates need?
Well, power and control. I mean, that's obvious. Population control.
Would Elon Musk want the same thing?
I don't know. I'm not in his brain. But on the flip side is Bill Gates has shown his cards. He's said what he wants.
I know, that's
he wants to depopulate. He wants population control. I mean, those are the things, you know.
There's a reason that Elon Musk is building spaceships. You know, because he knows we got to get the fuck out of here.
Well, and again, I don't know because I'm not in his brain, but sometimes the motivation can literally just be like, this is wrong, and I want to see what's right. The guy's got enough money. Like, at this point, if they really wanted to attack him and tear him down and try to take all of his money, I think they could probably get it done. If you got enough of the really big money people together, you could get it done. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things where, you know, he's pretty well off. I mean, if anything, the guy's just going to, like, you know, suicide himself. Like, that's probably what the next thing would be. So, of course, you know, this is definitely receiving, J6 is definitely receiving a lot of support from Donald Trump. You know, he said, let the January 6 prisoners go. They were convicted or awaiting trial based on a giant lie. A radical left con job. Thank you, Tucker Carlson, the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, for what you have both done. New video footage is irrefutable. So, the mainstream media, and this is from an article from New York Post, it says the mainstream media can spin and smear all they want, but there's no defense of the January 6 committee's cutting clips to remove context or lying about things that the footage contradicted. And this was GOP strategist Andrew Suburban tweeted. Tucker exposed the January 6 committee, which the media treated as the word of God, as a dishonest partisan charade, he added. And then
that's the way it is. I mean, it's frustrating, though, because people do. Like, they just watch CNN, you know?
That echo chamber, right?
Or they just watch Fox News, and
Right.
it's that echo chamber.
Let's see. Mary Miller, a representative out of Illinois, tweeted, "Thank you, Tucker Carlson, for exposing the lies of the partisan January 6th witch hunt committee. They hid videos and evidence from the American people to advance partisan political narrative. Tucker is a shining light and sharing the truth because democracy dies in darkness." Which I think is also another interesting point. Is it's all a word game, right? We've since moved from global warming. You don't hear that anymore. What do you now hear? Climate change, right? It's moved from transvestite to transgender. Or, so this is all an important word game and softening and really disconnecting people from what the actual meaning is. Constantly, we hear the word democracy. Constantly. We are not a democracy.
Mm-mm.
We are a representative republic and or a constitutional republic. And because if it were, you've heard me say before, if it were truly a democracy,
we would all vote.
That new truck that you have, I could get all the people to vote that I own that truck now. If in a true democracy, that now that truck's mine.
It's not.
If
new.
I got enough, okay.
It's new to me.
But what I'm getting at is if I got enough people to vote, I could now own your truck in a true democracy. Or if I wanted to take over your land, or I wanted to take away your children, or I wanted to take away your guns, etc. No, we are not a democracy. Get that word out of your fucking brain. It's not a democracy. It's a constitutional republic or representative republic based on how you want to look at it. So there is significantly more to it than democracy and voting, because again, if that were the case, that we were a democracy, just like you said, it would all be up to a popular vote on everything.
And in Kansas, you can't even do that. In some states, you can. Like in Oklahoma, like you can sign a petition to vote on recreational marijuana, but we don't have that luxury in Kansas to sign a petition to get a vote.
Didn't you say that that was something that you were, like, that they were working on getting changed?
I have no idea.
I thought you were the one telling me that.
I think it was something that I wished that they would change. I don't know if they're actually working on it.
Oh, okay.
Because that just takes more power away from them, so why would they change it?
Yeah, well, and takes their
just like them
time,
giving themselves fucking raises this year.
Time, effort, and energy away from other things that they could make money off of.
And Kansas is frustrating because, like, they only work half the year. You know?
Yeah.
And not even half. It's like,
well,
4, maybe 5 months.
And talking to Jason, and Jason is the outlier here, Jason Probst.
Mm-hmm.
He's the outlier. I mean, he did say, like, when we're in the Capitol, we're not getting rich. I mean, like, we're there and we can't leave, and we're not,
I'm okay
working our full-time job, that kind of stuff.
I am okay giving them raises to make that to where that is their full-time job for a certain number of terms, and to where they work the whole year. They're in session January to December, Obviously, they're going to have more time off because they're traveling for coming home to visit their families and this and that. Like, I'm okay with that, them giving a raise for that reason, but not to just give themselves a raise for 4 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And for us to end up in the same spot we've been in the last 3 fucking years of medical marijuana and nothing changed. Nothing. It's not going to pass this year. It won't. I would be surprised if it passes.
Well, I wanted to play a quick clip here. This is what Chuck Schumer had to say on Tucker Carlson releasing the footage. And so I wanted to play that so we can listen to it in the podcast. It's like a 6-minute speech. I don't know if we'll listen to the whole thing, but
okay.
I might pause and we might talk about some of the things. So we'll start that.
Last night, millions of Americans tuned in to one of the most shameful hours we have ever seen on cable television. With contempt for the facts, disregard of the risks, and knowing full well he was lying to his audience.
Have you ever noticed that the people that typically have done something, like, for instance, the cheater in the relationship that cheats, they're usually saying that their partner's cheating, like you're a cheater, like the person.
They're accusing of them.
They're doing the very thing that they're projecting and they're accusing. So as you listen to this, keep that in mind.
Fox News host Tucker Carlson ran a lengthy segment last night arguing the January 6th Capitol attack was not a violent insurrection. By diving deep into the waters of
Now, the important piece of that equation is when we talk about a violent insurrection, number one, as a patriot and as an American, I think that if our government isn't doing what it's supposed to, that's exactly what we're supposed to do. So
I'm pretty sure that's the way it's written in the Constitution.
First thing. Well, that's exactly why the framers wrote the Constitution the way they did, is because they knew we'd get to where we are now. Because we're broken people, work in a broken system, broken men, etc.
And they've seen like what our political system had done in the past and where the corruption comes in. Like they didn't just like come up with this, like they'd done the research on it and stuff too, you know?
Yeah. And if you really want to talk about violence, the only true violence that happened was perpetuated by the government against the citizenry in that soldier, that veteran that was killed as a result. That was really the only violence that happened. So,
conspiracy and cherry picking from thousands of hours of security footage.
So the important piece is they're again projecting and accusing of the very thing that their committee did, cherry picked certain pieces of footage to use, whereas he showed the whole, like this guy walking around the whole Capitol with the Capitol Police basically being escorted.
Mr. Carlson told the bold-faced lie that the Capitol attack, which we all saw with our own eyes, was somehow not an attack at all. He tried to argue it was nothing more than a peaceful sightseeing tour. Can you imagine? A nonviolent demonstration, a perfectly fine and appropriate instance of people expressing their opinion. So many others who were here in the Capitol, and millions of Americans are just furious with Tucker Carlson and Kevin McCarthy today. Many of my staff were here at the Capitol on January 6th. Their lives were put in danger, as were the lives of many of my colleagues, as well as police, maintenance staff, reporters.
And I think it's important that he's like, well, all these people were put in danger, the police. And I'm like, I find it interesting that when it's politically expedient for you, you'll use the police as your thing to stand on. I'm like, well, they put them in danger. Those poor police.
They're the first ones to throw under the rug.
Yeah, you're the ones that want to fucking defund us.
Yep.
And then he's like, oh, and then the media, they were put in danger. And I'm like, yeah, you're rebuking the media right now. What? This makes no sense.
Countless others. At one point, I was within 30 feet of the rioters. One of them, I was told, shouted out, "Let's get him."
So I have a question. If you were within 30 feet of the rioters, why did you have to get told that they said, "Let's get him"? Would you not have heard that? Yeah. Why did you need to be told that? Interesting piece.
Because he's so old he can't fucking hear.
Before my detail pulled me away, and we ran in the other direction.
I'm sure he
to
ran
say
really
January
fast.
6th was not violent is a lie pure and simple.
Yep, you're right. You're right. It was a lie. It was the only violence perpetuated was by the government.
I don't think I've ever seen a primetime cable news anchor manipulate his viewers the way Mr. Carlson did last.
That is also a lie. We watch it happen all the fucking time. And we watch it happen all through Rona. I mean, literally the death tickers on the front that the CDC has since said, oh crap, like we kind of miscounted those. My bad.
We're gonna put
Sorry.
that. We're gonna put that in reverse.
Our mistake.
It's like Ferris Bueller's Day Off when they take his dad's Corvette out for a spin,
and then try to like run it back,
run it in reverse. So the odometer goes back,
and then crash it down in the woods below the house. Yep. Yeah, they're crashing and burning. I think honestly, they're in oh fuck mode at this point between the Twitter files and all of this kind of stuff. I think they're in oh fuck mode.
Last night, I don't think I've ever seen an anchor treat the American people and American democracy with such disdain.
Again, there's that word democracy.
And he's going to come back tonight with another segment. Fox News should tell him not to. Fox News, Rupert Murdoch, tell Carlson not to run a second segment of lies. You know it's a lie. You've admitted it's a lie.
Sounds like a threat to me, man.
Please, God, please don't expose us anymore. I beg you. I'm so sorry. I won't do it again. Please don't.
That sounds like a threat.
Well, and not only that, but you have a government official. And granted, the Constitution reads that the government shall make no law, against like the media and free speech and all that. This isn't a law. But you have a government official essentially trying to, essentially censor the media. And let's face it, the guy's got some power and, potentially could wield that power. So when you have someone like this. He's
a Senate majority leader, right?
So I don't remember on Chuck Schumer. Let's look it up. He's a senator in New York. And he's had that seat since 1999, and he is the Senate Majority Leader since 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you were good there. So we'll keep going a little bit here.
And Speaker McCarthy is every bit as culpable.
At least on the upside, McCarthy was willing to stand behind the fact that he allowed it to happen versus being a anonymous whistleblower that you hear all the time. Like, who are these anonymous whistleblowers? Who are they? Where do they come from? At least he was willing to stand behind the fact of, yep, it was me. I released it. I gave him the footage. Mm-hmm. I like that. I can honor that.
As Mr. Carlson, Speaker McCarthy's decision to share security footage with Fox looked like a mistake from the very beginning. But after last night, it looks like a disaster.
Yeah, disaster for y'all. Because your narrative is getting blown to fucking pieces. Here's my thing is, our government tax dollars paid for every cent of every person that was in that building, every window, every camera, every storage server that had the video, all of it. It's owned by us. This shouldn't even be a question as to whether it should or could or woulda or whatever. That should be here's the information. Make your own informed decision.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
Speaker McCarthy has played a treacherous game by catering to the hard right.
You know what I think is interesting? Any time that you buck up against them in any way, you're the hard right.
And Fox News is not even close to like the hard right media.
My thing is like, if you look at what the Bible says to do with like people that are like child molesters and all that other kind of stuff, like if you want to, like, cause there was a document that came out where the FBI was labeling certain Catholics as domestic terrorists. If that were the case, like, then they'd just be putting people into a wood chipper. Like that is extremism. That is the hard right, right? And I think anytime you buck up against these people and they're talking about playing treacherous games and all this other kind of stuff this is exactly what you do. This is the bed that you've made, and now you're essentially kind of laying in it. You play these games constantly. You do these things constantly. It's second nature to you. It's like a businessman making a purchasing decision. It's second nature.
Yep.
He's enabled the big lie and has further eroded away at our precious democracy. When people don't...
Again, we hear in the word democracy. Keep in mind, this gentleman's reading from a script. The verbiage is very important.
It's well thought out.
Democracy, yes. Democracy was chosen for a specific reason. It's like this sentiment that the majority of people don't want this. The majority of people don't like this. Well, here's the deal. Even if 99.9% repeating of people in this nation wanted to take guns and I was the 0.1%, fuck them, because the Constitution says I can have it. Mm-hmm. And until you go through the process of a 2/3 majority vote and getting the Constitution amended, I am completely protected under the Constitution of that, regardless of what everyone else thinks. So you really have to pay attention to the words these people are using, because it's very important. Always make sure you're running the words that you hear. And I'm not saying just from Chuck Schumer, okay? Senator, like the McCarthy guy that's a Republican, that's the Speaker of the House. Like
Ted Cruz.
Any of them. This isn't a Republican versus Democrat. I'm not trying to divide you.
Even Donald Trump.
Make sure you filter it and think, why is this being said? What are they trying to gain? What is the message they're trying to send?
Don't believe elections are on the level? That's the beginning of the end of this bold experiment in democracy that has gone on for more than 200 years. It's all the more shameful because Speaker McCarthy knows precisely what kind of customer Mr. Carlson is. He's not surprised by this outcome.
What kind of customer he is? Anyone that says anything that isn't what we want is a bad person. Like, that's the litmus test.
What a low point for Speaker McCarthy. What a low point for Fox News. As reporting on the Dominion lawsuit shows, Mr. Carlson had no problem admitting behind the scenes that the big lie is pure garbage. When Sidney Powell went on the air to push the stolen election narrative, Mr. Carlson told fellow...
The stolen election narrative, the same different, the narrative that they pushed was that it was the violent insurrection, etc.
What's the Dominion deal he's talking about?
Dominion is the company that does all of the electronic voting, and there were some issues that they were kind of like that they had screwed with the election, like basically making votes count different ways and stuff like that.
So they're the voting machines, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anchor.
I was trying to get that to show up on the TV for you so you could see it, but I don't know why.
Is he like in front of the whole Senate now talking?
Yes. This is him in front of the whole House or Senate, whatever. Sorry. I don't know why I can't get that to come up there for you. But oh well, I'll just keep playing it.
Anchor Laura Ingraham that Sidney Powell is lying. His words by the deposition. Mr. Carlson's own producer texted him that quote.
Oh, hey, look, it takes the audio from here. Damn it. And puts it on the TV.
Nice.
Oh, damn it. So much for that idea.
There is evidence of voter fraud that swung the election. They know full well they've been lying. And they're doing it anyway. We all, Americans of all types and stripes and corners of this country, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, need to take a stand and call out Mr. Carlson's conduct for what it is, a dangerous, unforgivable attempt to destabilize our democracy and rewrite the history of the worst attack on our Constitution since the Civil War. It's an
I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, the guy is releasing footage, and he's basing his observations and his assertions off of video footage received from the building where this happened. How is this unforgivable? Like, had he gone out and killed millions of people or hundreds of people or whatever, like, that's something that's unforgivable.
Crimes against humanity, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't see how releasing video, and he's talking about destabilizing. If anything, it's destabilizing to their foundation because people are starting to go, wait a fucking minute. Like, something's not right here. Mm-hmm. The only thing you're destabilizing is their narrative and their power and what they're trying to get and what they're pushing, in my opinion. Yeah. Again, that's my opinion.
I mean, everything comes out eventually. That's the issue. Like, when you set up something like that, like, it is so, there's so many moving pieces that eventually, like it's going to get leaked out what actually happened, you know?
Well, but the thing is that is that we as Americans have like such a the American people have the what I want to say, attention span of a gnat. Like people said after 9/11, never forget. They very quickly forgot. Mm-hmm. We were never as united as we'd ever been that I'd ever seen than after 9/11 for a period of time. Cops were loved, firefighters were loved, military was loved, etc. Complete unity. Gone in an instant. You know, people are forgetting that COVID happened and that they did all that stuff to you for essentially no reason. Mm-hmm. And then they try to say, trust the science. Well, the science is always ever changing.
Yeah, it's not
a definitive
set in stone.
thing. There's a method and a practice and information that comes through. And so, you know, it's just interesting to see how the destabilization is actually being perpetuated by the government. You've heard me many times say, when was the last time the government ever came into your life and made something better or easier? You know?
Never.
To every police officer who was on the scene that terrible, fearful day, it's an insult.
Again, continue to stand on us police officers when it's politically expedient for you, but then call for us to be defunded when it's also politically expedient.
To the memory of every single person who perished in connection to the attack.
The one person that died. The other people died after the fact from other issues. Probably suicided, but, you know.
It was the lady, right?
The veteran that got shot by Capitol Police.
Especially to the memory of Brian Sicknick. Nonviolent? Ask the Sicknick family.
Mr. Sicknick died of strokes after the fact. Like, he did not die at the hands of protesters, yet here we are still spinning the narrative. He never says... He even specifically omits, remember the verbiage here. He specifically omits, he doesn't say at the hands of protesters or anything. He leaves it very vague, especially the memory of Officer Sicknick. Okay, like, I'm not trying to say that, like, I'm happy the guy died or anything like that. But to say that it was a violent protester that killed him, that's not what happened. And also this messaging is very vague.
It makes me sick just thinking about what his family must be going through this morning. And it's an insult to everyone who cares about our democracy and wishes to preserve the dream of our founders in our day, in our age. I hope every member of this chamber will call out Fox and Mr. Carlson for defending the insurrectionists. And again, I am disappointed and angered in Speaker McCarthy's decision to share sensitive security footage with Mr. Carlson.
And I'm curious, what was so sensitive about the footage? Like, were they holding up classified documents of how to make a nuke?
Yeah, and it wasn't like you watched a dude beat someone's head in with a fire extinguisher.
I mean, like, again, what was so sensitive about it? The reason that it was sensitive is because it doesn't help you in your position.
Mm-hmm. Speaker McCarthy was here that day. He knows what actually happened. His staff and members...
Which is probably why he released it.
Mm-hmm. Suffered like everyone else, but he chose cheap political expediency over truth and preservation of democracy. I condemn Mr. Carlson for siding...
So, cheap political expediency versus the truth. How is releasing video to people to view and see and have the information, how is that not seeking the truth? Here's everything. I mean, like, when I make a case against somebody and I arrest them, I am required by law to give every single document, every single piece of video, photograph, everything I have against them that they can then use against the trier of fact or trier of truth, the judge, to potentially get themselves out or find something that I did wrong and use that to get themselves out of an issue. How is releasing video footage a bad thing? That is the truth portion of it. Mm-hmm. Telling me what I should think based on a committee and not showing me what happened, That to me is not seeking the truth. That is the opposite of it.
Yeah. So something like this happened in Kansas. Not, to this extent, but just showing one side of the argument for medical marijuana. So 2 weeks ago, they had educational hearings. You know who didn't get invited to the educational hearings?
The coalition?
The coalition, the chamber, ACLU, Bleeding Kansas, all these advocates that have been advocating for years for medical or for marijuana in Kansas. Nobody got invited. You know who was there?
Who's that?
MSOs.
What's an MSO?
Multi-state operations.
So
other dispensaries.
basically big money.
Big money.
Yeah.
And
which is the whole
people who are so right-wing and against cannabis. It was all proponents, basically, of a program. But it was educational. Now, this week, they're having more testimony. But I don't think that it was planned to happen. I think that they are backtracking now because we made a scene about it. When we were up in Kansas City, we said stuff about it on the news about how that needed to change and how they only had one side. Now they're backtracking, and they invited us to come and testify on Wednesday. But opponents and neutrals get 1 day split, and proponents get a full day the next day. So to me, that says, they got their fucking minds made up.
Yeah.
They already have what they need to know from those educational deals a couple weeks ago. They're just doing this to
appease.
Yeah. Make it look like they care. Which is what politics do. Politicians.
So this video is almost done here, so.
Fighting with the enemies of democracy. I strongly condemn Speaker McCarthy's actions and fiercely oppose his decision to share this footage with Carlson. I urge Fox News to order Carlson to cease propagating the big lie on his network and to level with their viewers about the truth behind the efforts to mislead the public. Conduct like theirs is just asking for another January 6th.
Which you fear. So, Tucker Carlson, of course, had a answer to this. And let me make sure this is the right video here. I think this is it. Let's look.
So the defenders of democracy are out defending democracy again. They're telling you it's really, really dangerous, and anyone would get to see the thousands of hours of surveillance footage from January 6th, which has been hidden from the public for 2 years, as a tiny group of people gets to make up stories about what happened that day and change the country on the basis of those.
So that's one thing I have to agree with is basically here's the information versus here's what a couple of people
decided the information.
Are telling you to think or choosing to show you.
Mm-hmm.
Stories. And we respectfully disagree. We think people should, in a democracy, be allowed to see what their government is doing and get as much evidence as they...
In a constitutional republic, people should be allowed to have full transparency of their government.
Mm-hmm.
They can. And it turns out the public agrees. Rasmussen, the polling firm, just found that 80% of American voters believe it's important that the public should be allowed to see the videos from January 6th. That would include 86% of Republicans, okay, but it would also include 78% of Democrats, 78% and 75% of independents. Wow. So you're defending democracy, but you're denying people information on the basis of which they can make their own decisions. How does that work exactly? Well, it's not democracy, of course. It's building a bulwark against your lies being revealed. And they are lying. And we know that because we've been looking at the tape. We're going to bring you information on the tape and some of it next week. And we think it's going to be really, really interesting.
That's the thing with me, though. I wish that Fox News would be like, here's the video. Because then it is, again, a certain group of people deciding just exactly what we get to see.
Well, if you go out and you do a little bit of research, you can see different pieces of footage. Now, I have yet to find, because if you think about it, if I tried to download 80,000 hours of video,
good luck.
Or 40, maybe it was 40. I think 40. 40,000 hours of video, that is a massive amount of content.
How do you even watch that?
Huh?
How do you even watch that?
Well, so it's when they say 40,000 hours, you have to keep in mind that there was, like, let's say
multiple cameras.
How many cameras they have, and it's 24 hours this day on this camera, 24 hours in this day on this camera, and there's probably hundreds of cameras there.
Yeah.
So it's easy to aggregate that and make it, inflate it and see what it is. I mean, I'm sure it's snippets. So you might get one that's in like a storage closet that all you get is black because nobody went in there. So, but then also, where do you host that and how do you share that? Because now you have potentially millions or hundreds of millions of people trying to download it.
Give it to Elon
so
Musk, he'll figure it out.
Yeah. So there are some hurdles
Starlink.
to jump in getting all of that out of there. But let's just say they are cherry picking. Like, let's just take your thought process and run with it for a little bit. Let's say Fox News is just quote unquote cherry picking, right? Well, they are quote unquote cherry picking the opposite end of the spectrum. So now you have both sides of the story. Mm-hmm. So now you have the violent insurrection of like the Molotov cocktails and like, you know, that kind of thing. And now you have this other side. But the part that makes it's interesting, that makes me just raise just a little bit of an eyebrow, is the fact that if this guy was supposedly this big bad protester out front and all this kind of stuff, why was he in the building? Like, that just is the first question. Why was he in the building being escorted around by Capitol Police? That's kind of, that just makes me go, what? Like, something's not adding up. Something's not right, to at least make me go, okay, something's not right. Ask more questions, get more information. This isn't me standing here definitively. I'm not standing on this podcast saying, all right, everyone, enough's enough. It's time to get up, grab your guns, and go fight the government. And that's not what I'm trying to get at.
Make Nick's job difficult.
I'll just let you people know when that time comes, I'm right there with you. FTG. So it just makes me, I'm just asking people to kind of start questioning things that they see and hear. This isn't me definitively standing on this podcast saying January 6th was a hoax. This isn't me definitively saying that it was a violent outcry. This isn't me definitively saying anything. This is me saying, be informed, do your research, ask your own questions, and don't take all this stuff at face value. Mm-hmm. What make the decision off what you see with your own eyes and hear with your own ears.
Yeah, I agree. Like, don't take what you see even just on Fox News at face value, or CNN at face value, or on Twitter at face value. You know, like, you've got to balance where you get your news from, and you've got to see it from multiple sources on both sides.
Yeah, you know,
But who's got the time to do that shit?
Well, people at Fox News that are paid to do that kind of thing. But what I'm saying is one thing I do have to agree with of what Mr. Carlson said was, you're arguing that you are standing for the representative republic or for the constitutional republic. You're saying that you stand for them and with them, yet you're trying to keep them from seeing any of the information.
Yeah.
How is it that doesn't make sense? Again, that they didn't have top secret documents that they were showing on the cameras, and then trying to keep people from, or to that Iran's now going to build a nuke because they saw it.
And it's not like hundreds of people got brutally murdered on these cameras, you know? Like, It's not, I don't know. I agree with that 100%. Like, why are we trying to hide that?
Yes.
Why can't we see that?
Yeah. And even if hundreds of people got brutally murdered, at least we would now have that information and say, wow, yeah, what happened there was wrong.
Not good.
And I stand with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm not saying...
Or if we even see the one video, the dude getting his head beat in with a fire extinguisher.
Which is not there.
Yeah, I know, but like...
That we know of.
Yeah.
I mean, it is very publicly... Like, if you just search Capitol Police Officer Sitnick and everything, it's all over that he died of a strokes after the fact. Definitely not the fire extinguisher narrative.
Yeah.
So... there's definitely more to come out on that. And I think there's a lot more to be had and said, but the problem is like, you know, all of this stuff is almost like it's coming to an end, and, we can get into conspiracy theory here in just a sec. Like, I don't want to get off on this tangent too far, but it's interesting because like, I think that that they're realizing that so much of this shit's coming to a head between like the Rona and all this stuff that like, and Epstein, and now that list is getting ready to be released, and finally, and they're like, oh shit.
I didn't know that was getting released.
Mm-hmm. A federal judge finally ordered that list to be released, and so, well, I think you might be surprised at who's on it. People that you really like and probably respect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that every single person that probably went to that island fucked kids, but it'd be interesting to see who all's on that list. But it's like, okay, now we need a war in Ukraine. That's why we keep pushing this. Now we can unite the people at least on something, and now we can get the view off of us. Now we need this war.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and, you know, it makes the Raytheons and those kind of people a lot of money.
Yeah.
Those are the people that fund most of their campaigns. So, did you hear about the quote-unquote fake Messiah in Israel? So it's also interesting that all of this stuff's coming around because they're saying that there's another Messiah in Israel right now to where he has a huge following, has supposedly done miracles just like Christ. They're building a synagogue just for him. But it's interesting because it's the Jewish people that are calling him the Messiah, which they did not accept Christ in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And, they killed him. That's how much they didn't like Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying that, like, this guy is, the Messiah and all this other kind of stuff. So essentially, if you go on, this is again another rabbit hole that we could probably do another whole hour or two on. But what I'm getting at is it's just like, as a Christian, Revelations talks about the coming of days and stuff. But I was telling my wife, I'm like, well, Revelations talks about how essentially he'll kind of come out of the clouds on the back of a white horse. I'm like, this guy is like dressed like a Jew and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm like, if anything, they talk about the Antichrist that will be seen as this most amazing thing that will bring peace to all the other things. But my wife pointed out a good thing of, if you were going to attack God or Christ, where would you start first?
Close to home.
With his chosen people, the Jews,
mm-hmm.
right? And I was like, ooh, interesting thought process there. And so, because for me as a believer, Christ was, born, crucified, and risen again.
Mm-hmm.
And then he will return on the back of a white horse. So I struggle with that of being, essentially Christ all over again.
Yeah.
That's something I definitely struggle with. Now, my mind's not closed to that fact, because, I've watched God do amazing things in my life. So I'm not putting it past him to, like, if he wanted to, he could snap us into or out of existence. So it's like, hey, son, do you want to go back to Earth? Sounds good. Let's do it,
Yeah.
But,
I think it's going to be completely different than the first time around.
So it's just an interesting thought of seeing all this stuff come together, and I think it's easy to get hung up and like dwell on a lot of these things. But the best thing you can do is, just like Andy says, personal excellence is the ultimate rebellion. When you're building a business, when you're building yourself better, you're not reliant on them. You're not reliant on their streaming services. You're not reliant on their medications. You're not reliant on them. You're not making them money. Personal excellence is the ultimate rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
If everybody was personally excellent, we wouldn't need the government. We wouldn't need the pharmaceutical companies as much. And we would all be significantly better off. So that's what I'm trying to get at through this podcast is I'm not definitively saying it was a hoax. I'm not definitively saying it was a violent insurrection. Make your own decision on that. Listen to the verbiage very carefully.
To me and Nick, like what we've talked about today, like, could be wrong. Like a year
For
from
sure.
now, there could be more information that comes out. And
100%.
This could be wrong.
100%. 100%. I'm just trying to get out the information and have the conversation. Again, just have a conversation. Not try to tell you what or how to think.
Yeah. We all like to think that everybody is good and does things for good reasons, but
everybody does.
The more I've been into politics, like, and seen it, like, the more it's like, oh, it's rare for people to actually do the right thing for a good reason.
Well, and that's another thing that I found through, like, my Live Hard process and 75 Hard process is I have very little room for people's bullshit or for their excuses or for their lack of doing that. So when people like that come around, like I don't associate, I cut them out. So it is a foreign concept to me because I just don't deal with it.
That's a hard thing to do too.
Yeah.
To cut those people out because some of those people could have been close with you.
Yeah.
And they have
had
been.
to do it recently.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I had. I mean, we've covered quite a lot there. So
We did.
Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about, or you said you had some things that you were wanting to?
Well, I kind of filled in there, here and there.
Okay, good.
With the
I just didn't
medical
want to seem like I
marijuana
took over, you know.
No, I just.
Of course, I did my research, and you just kind of tagged along, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's the way we roll. I don't know. There's just a lot of frustration with our political system with me right now, and not because in Kansas, like it's the Republicans that are the dumbasses. Not all Republicans are, but it's the Republicans that are holding this bill up so it'll pass.
You know, I'll tell you one thing. It's definitely not an R versus D thing for me because if I could, I would vote for Jason Prost in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm. I would too.
And he's a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
In a freaking heartbeat.
Yep.
Good.
And
he's a good man.
Like Ty Masterson, the senator from Andover.
You mean Tyrant Masterson?
Yes. He is the reason the medical marijuana bill has not passed. He is a representative for the Andover area. So if you're in that area, maybe you shouldn't vote for him next time. Even though
not trying to tell you what to think.
But
if you're a proponent of medical cannabis, that should help you make your voting decision.
Yeah. He is one of the main reasons. He's the Senate majority leader, the Senate president. So basically he says what bills can be passed and can't be passed or can be voted on in the Senate. And he's held it up the last 3 years, and it does look like it's going to change this year. So that man needs to go. He needs to be voted out. So just lots of frustration.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's something that you've been invested in, and you kind of wanted to see happen.
Yeah.
And
because there's people suffering, man. There's people suffering without. There's going to be people that abuse marijuana, just like there's people that abuse alcohol.
They are now.
Yes, there always will be.
Yeah.
But
it's interesting is you talk about a plant that grows, people smoke it, and then that's abuse, and that's like seen as this taboo thing.
Yeah.
Yet I can't be arrested for going to McDonald's and abusing my body by eating trash food all day long.
Far worse to get
and far worse for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's the part that's just perplexing to me.
Yep, it's follow the money, man.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you got to do with all this.
Exactly.
Follow the money all the way back, and that money goes back to a few pockets, and those people run our system completely. So I'm not going to get too much in depth with this. I could talk for another 2 hours about this stuff. So, I don't know. Let's just go out there and be the change we want to be. We talk about that a lot. I do. I say that, and that's basically the same what Nick was saying earlier. And let's make the world a better place.
Yeah, and I think the biggest key here is stop being a success zombie.
Mm-hmm.
And stop consuming all of this content of like these videos about how to be better and how to do better and how to blah, blah, and then not execute. Go out and execute. And if that means you start slow with a 30-minute walk every day, go execute that.
Little wins at a time.
And then start building on them.
Baby steps.
That's the thing I found so far with Live Hard and 75 Hard is, you start building on those things and they start becoming easy. They start becoming inculcated in your life. That's just who you are, what you do, how you do it.
Like the gym, it's a habit.
Start building on those small things. And it doesn't always have to be going to the gym. It doesn't have to be 75 Hard. It doesn't have to be Live Hard.
I mean, the gym for me, like, I've said it multiple times, like, that's my antidepressant. I go in there and I get moving and I gain confidence and it helps me. And, like, I don't have to take prescription medicines for depression because I go to the gym. And I feel better about my body than I did the day before.
Yeah. So go out and make those small changes and just execute. So
100%. Well, guys, thanks for listening to the Higher Points. And we'd appreciate if you guys give us a like on social media, on our Instagram at The Higher Points, or on Facebook. Go check out the website, share the episodes, leave us a review. All that stuff goes a long ways. We are still renting out our podcast studio if anybody would like to get off the ground and do their own podcast, or even if they want to just record like a 20-minute podcast or like a 5-minute ad or something. Our studio is open and we'll help you get going. So we just want to see people succeed. Just go out there and let's have a good week.
We'll catch up with you guys next time.